Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 16. We're continuing on the first 3 verses that were started yesterday. So we'll be continuing on the purport from where Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu left off. First we'll recite these verses. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samsutir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam Ahimsa Satyam Akrodas Tyaga Shantirapaisanam Daya Bhuteshvalo Lutvam Mardavam Hirachapalam Teja Kshama Triti Socham Adroho Natimanita Bhavanti Sampadam Daivam Abhijatasya Bharata. So actually what we're covering today is only in the first verse, so we can just recite together the first verse. So I'll just go through this first verse 2 more times and we can recite that together. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samsudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samsudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam. Abhayam Sattva Samsudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam. Abhayam Sattva Samsudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi Dhanam Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam. Someone else like to recite?
It's part of my pronunciation wrong with that. It's okay.
It's okay.
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha
Sri Bhagavan Uvacha
Abhayam Sattva Samsudir
Abhayam Sattva Samsudir Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi
Dhanam
Dhammascha Yagyascha Svadhyayastapa Arjavam. Okay, so we'll go through the word for all of it so we understand the whole process. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Abhayam, fearlessness, Sattva Samsuddhi, purification of one's existence, Jnana, in knowledge, Yoga, of linking up, Vyavastitihi, the situation, Dana, charity, Dhammaha, controlling the mind, Cha, and Yajnaha, performance of sacrifice. Cha, and Svadhyayaha, study of Vedic literature. Tapaha, austerity. Arjavam, simplicity. Ahimsa, non-violence. Satyam, truthfulness. Akrodaha, freedom from anger. Tyagaha, renunciation. Shanti, tranquility. Apashanam, aversion to fault-finding. Daya, mercy. Bhuteshu, toward all living entities. Aloluktvam, freedom from greed. Mardavam, gentleness. Hri, modesty. Achapalam, determination. Tejaha, vigor. Kshama, forgiveness. Dhritti, fortitude. Socham, cleanliness. Adroha, freedom from envy. Na, not. Ati manita, expectation of honor. Bhavanti, are. Sampadam, the qualities. Daivim, the transcendental nature. Abhijatasya, of one who is born of. Bharata, O son of Bharat. Translation, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Please repeat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Bharata, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. So we're beginning the purports with Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti, because that's where Bhuvaneshwar left off yesterday. The next item is Jnana Yoga Vyavastiti, being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. Sannyasi life is meant for distributing knowledge to the householders and others who have forgotten their real life of spiritual advancement. A sannyasi is supposed to beg from door to door for his livelihood, but this does not mean that he is a beggar. Humility is also one of the qualifications of a transcendentally situated person, and out of sheer humility, the sannyasi goes from door to door, not exactly for the purpose of begging, but to see the householders and awaken them to Krishna consciousness. This is the duty of a sannyasi. If he is actually advanced and so ordered by his spiritual master, he should preach Krishna consciousness with logic and understanding. And if one is not so advanced, he should not accept the renounced order of life. But even if one has accepted the renounced order of life without sufficient knowledge, he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. A sannyasi, or one in the renounced order of the life, must be situated in fearlessness, sattva samsuddhi, purity, and jnana yoga, knowledge. The next item is charity. Charity is meant for the householders. The householders should earn a livelihood by an honorable means and spend 50% of their income to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. Thus, a householder should give in charity to institutional societies that are engaged in that way. Charity should be given to the right receiver. There are different kinds of charity, as will be explained later on. Charity in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Charity in the mode of goodness is recommended by the scriptures, but charity in the modes of passion and ignorance is not recommended, because it is simply a waste of money. Charity should be given only to propagate Krishna consciousness all over the world. That is charity in the mode of goodness. Then, as far as Dhamma, self-control is concerned, it is not only meant for other orders of religious society, but it is especially meant for the householder. Although he has a wife, a householder should not use his senses for sex life unnecessarily. There are restrictions for the householders even in sex life, which should be engaged in only for the propagation of children. If he does not require children, he should not enjoy sex life with his wife. Modern society enjoys sex life with contraceptive methods or more abominable methods to avoid the responsibility of children. This is not in the transcendental quality, but is demoniac. If anyone, even if he is a householder, wants to make progress in spiritual life, he must control his sex life and should not beget a child without the purpose of serving Krishna. If he is able to beget children who will be in Krishna consciousness, then one can produce hundreds of children. But without this capacity, one should not indulge only for sense pleasure. Sacrifice is another item to be performed by householders, because sacrifices require a large amount of money. Those in other orders of life, namely brahmacharya, vanaprastha and sannyas, have no money. They live by begging. So performance of different types of sacrifice is meant for the householders. They should perform Agnihotra sacrifices as enjoined in the Vedic literature. But such sacrifices at present moment are very expensive, and it is not possible for any householder to perform them. The best sacrifice recommended in this age is called Sankirtan Yajna. This Sankirtan Yajna the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best and most inexpensive sacrifice. Everyone can adopt it and derive benefit. So these items, namely charity, sense control, and performance of sacrifice, are meant for the householder. Then, Svadhyaya, Vedic study, is meant for brahmacharya, or student life. Brahmacharis should have no connection with women. They should live a life of celibacy and engage the mind in study of Vedic literature for cultivation of spiritual knowledge. This is called Svadhyaya. Tapas, or austerity, is especially meant for the retired life. One should not remain a householder throughout his whole life. He must always remember that there are 4 divisions of life: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So after grihastha, householder life, one should retire. If one lives for 100 years, he should spend 25 years in student life, 25 years in householder life, 25 years in retired life, and 25 in the renounced order of life. These are the regulations of the Vedic religious discipline. A man retired from householder life must practice austerities of the body, mind, and tongue. That is tapasya. The entire Varnashram Dharma society is meant for tapasya. Without tapasya or austerity, no human being can get liberation. The theory that there is no need of austerity in life, that one can go on speculating and everything will be nice, is recommended neither in the Vedic literature nor in the Bhagavad Gita. Such theories are manufactured by show bottle spiritualists who are trying to gather more followers. If there are restrictions, rules, and regulations, people will not become attracted. Therefore, those who want followers in the name of religion, just to have a show only, don't restrict the lives of their students nor their own lives. But that method is not approved by the Vedas. Simplicity is for tomorrow? Okay, that's fine. Good. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadam Tikam Vandayaham Shri Guru Shri Gita Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatam Tam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritam Sitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastate Deshatavani Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Mustaka Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sri Bhagavan Vacham, Abhayam Sattva Samsadya, Jnana Yoga Vyavastitihi, Dhanam Damas Chayakyascha, Svadhyayas Tapa Arujabam, Ahimsa Satyam Akrodas, Tyaga Shantira Paishanam, Daya Bhutashvilo Loptam, Mardavam Prirachapalam, Teja Kshama Tati Socham, Ajoho Natimanata, Bhavanti Sampadam Devim, Abhijata Sibharata. So these are the 26 qualities of a devotee. In the last paragraph of the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, all these 26 qualifications mentioned are transcendental qualities. They should be cultivated according to the different statuses of social and occupational order. The purport is that even though material conditions are miserable, if these qualities are developed by practice by all classes of men, then gradually it is possible to rise to the highest platform of transcendental realization. So, transcendental qualities have been mentioned right through the Bhagavad Gita. In the second chapter, 254, Arjuna asks about these transcendental qualities. Arjuna said, O Krishna, what are the symptoms of one whose consciousness is thus merged in transcendence? How does he speak? What is his language? How does he sit? And how does he walk? So Krishna spends basically the rest of the second chapter discussing these answers to these questions, and why 254 Arjuna asked 254 Arjuna asked the question about the qualities of transcendence, and Krishna answers mostly about control of the senses. The next verse, Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O Parita, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. When one who is not disturbed in mind even amongst threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, who is free from attachment, fear and anger, is called a sage of steady mind. So in the second chapter, this sage of steady mind is very much emphasized. In the following verse, Pragya Pratishta, situated in perfect knowledge. So Krishna also explains how strong and impetuous the senses are in the middle of this description, and how difficult it is to control them. But when one becomes free from this attachment, aversion and everything else, one becomes situated in intelligence. So this feature of intelligence and knowledge is also one that's carrying through right into this chapter. So towards the end of the second chapter, I think the last verse. We'll read from 70 through to 72. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, not a man who strives to satisfy such desires. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and devoid of false ego, He alone can achieve real peace. So, and then this verse number 72, in the last verse of the second chapter. That is the way of spiritual and godly life, after attaining which a man is not bewildered. If one is thus situated, even at the hour of death, one can enter into the kingdom of God. So this is basically the same point that we're entering into at the beginning of this 16th chapter. The difference between the spiritual and godly life and the other life, which is asuric and rakshasic. So again, in the 13th chapter, 13:8 to 12, Krishna talks about the qualities of knowledge. Srila Prabhupada describes it in the purport as the process of knowledge, which begins amani pamadhamvidam, humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, acceptance of the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So then in the 14th chapter, the subject of the matter was the modes of material nature. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport is tying the modes of material nature. He's emphasizing the difference between the modes of goodness and the modes of passion and ignorance. So he's pulling together this 14th chapter, also the 15th chapter, and coming into the 16th chapter. So in the 15th chapter, we had something about being trained in knowledge also. In verses 10 and 11 of the 15th chapter, which Mother Yashoda nicely explained how this was the devotee being trained in knowledge and being the endeavoring transcendentalist. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So this distinction is now going to be emphasized very much in the 16th chapter. The foolish who cannot understand are the asuric and demoniac, and the ones who are trained in knowledge are the Devi, the godly. And in the 11th verse also, Krishna says, the endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So this distinction is very important. Krishna is trying to make a point that this training in knowledge is very important. One cannot be like the material people who think they're very intelligent and invent their own form of intelligence and try and by mental speculation to understand what's happening. Because Krishna is saying they may try it, but still they cannot understand. And then coming to the end of the 15th chapter, the last verse, this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So this again is stressing understanding from the authoritative source, from Krishna. And what that understanding is was just covered in the last 4 or 5 verses. How Krishna is the Supreme Person. And he is above all other classes of persons, both fallible and infallible. So 18 and 19, I like these verses very much. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as the Supreme Person. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. Therefore he engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. And in the last verse is, whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So this attainment of wisdom is not by simple academic study without understanding the goal. Just academic study and so much knowledge will not achieve this goal. This wisdom to be attained about Krishna being the Supreme Person and everyone else being less than him, and that this will lead to devotional service, has to come by realization, and we have to actually engage in this service. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me. So this is also part of the process of purification. So this is the link that brings us to the beginning of the 16th chapters. So now in the 16th chapter, Krishna is distinguishing the qualities of this wise person. This person who has the qualification to come to this point of knowledge is this godly qualities, these divine qualities. And for most of the rest of the chapter, Krishna will describe the demoniac qualities. So briefly in the next verse, he describes demoniac qualities: pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to demoniac nature, O son of Pritha. And in the 5th one, he summarizes, the transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demoniac qualities make for bondage. And he says, do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with the divine qualities. So this born of comes in all these verses. In the verses we're reading now, in the 3rd verse, also in the 4th verse, and also in the 5th verse. Srila Prabhupada picks up the word in the purport, abhijatasya, which is born of. So this is important. This also links us back to the 15th chapter, because earlier in the 15th chapter we learned how we're transferred from one body to another and how we become born into a certain type of senses and attractions and feelings. So that was in verses 8 and 9. Krishna said, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. Thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So this is a significant point of born abhijatasya, born of these qualities. So we're born into a particular body, but that doesn't mean we're stuck into particular modes of nature. So that's why in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is describing Varna Ashram Dharma. Now, I was a little intrigued to understand how we understood that Varnashram Dharma came out of these qualities. So I thought Srila Prabhupada writes nothing without coming from the Acharyas, so I should look into the Acharyas' commentaries and see where it comes from. So, in Gita Bhushana, Baladev Vidyabhushan, he writes extensively on Varnashram Dharma and his explanation of these qualities. He actually puts all of the qualities listed here in either Varna or Ashram. Srila Prabhupada emphasizes some of these qualities are meant to be developed by all of us, because we all need these godly qualities. So I went through these ones. I'll just pick out a little bit. And also then I went to this website where you get the 4 Sampradayas commentaries as well. We'll pick out just a few things from these, because Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu mentioned Prabhupada's lectures yesterday, so I thought we'll do something a little different today. Okay, so in the beginning, Baladev Vidyabhushan, his beginning is very much like Prabhupada's. He explains he also mentions the verses in the 9th chapter, which explain divine and demonic qualities, which we should just read again. So in the beginning of the purport, Srila Prabhupada said, in the beginning of the 15th chapter, the banyan tree of the material world was explained. The extra roots coming out of it were compared to the activities of the living entities, some auspicious and some inauspicious. In the 9th chapter also, the devas or godly and the asuras or ungodly or demons were explained. So those verses come in the middle of the 9th chapter. Around about okay, so 9:11. Fools deride me when I descend in human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In their deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruit of activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So this same distinction is being made between the asuric or demonic people who have no hope for liberation, no hope for success in their fruit of activities, and no hope for the culture of knowledge, who are being compared to the great souls who are not deluded. And they fully engage in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So this again is the purpose we find in the Acharya's commentary. This is the purpose of this 16th chapter, to distinguish what is divine qualities and what is demonic qualities. They are also described as the fruits of the banyan tree. The auspicious fruits are divine qualities and the inauspicious fruits are demonic qualities. So that's our link to the roots going up and down. Okay, so the divine qualities are called Devi Sampat. So Sampat means opulences or assets. It's mentioned also in the Sanskrit in verse 5. These are the excellent fruit of the Asvata tree. asuric qualities are caused by sinful impressions. So Baladeva Vidyabhushan is talking what we carry from one body to the other as just impressions. So the pious impressions lead us into a pious body and lead us to pious qualities. And the impious impressions lead us into a sinful life, a sinful body, and undesirable fruit of the tree. So he describes, basically he breaks them up like this. The same in the beginning, the same breakup. 3 qualities for the sannyas, 2 of which Bhuvaneshwar covered yesterday, which was fearlessness and purity of mind. Today we have Jnana Yoga Vivastiti. Then 3 qualities for the householder, which is charity, self-control and sacrifice. 1 for the brahmachari, svadhyaya, study of the Vedas. Vanaprastha, tapas, austerity. And then many of the next qualities are qualities of a brahmana. So Srila Prabhupada in his purport describes them in a general way so that we understand we should be developing all of them. But qualities of the brahmana, arjava, which Prabhupada translates as simplicity, which means not being deceitful, so it also means honesty. Satya, ahimsa, satya, akrodha, tyag, apaishana, daya, alolutva, mardava, hari, and achapala are all qualities of a brahmana. There are 12 qualities that Baladeva Vidyabhushan ascribes to brahmana. And then Srila Prabhupada also follows this. The kshatriya quality is tejas. And also kshama, which is tolerance, forgiveness, and driti, which means determination. So that's Baladeva Vidyabhushan puts all these 3 qualities as kshatriya qualities. Vaishya quality, Srila Prabhupada also mentions socha, cleanliness, and also not being deceitful. Adroha means not to be violent against others. This is qualities of a Vaishya. And the Sudra gets na atimanita, not being falsely proud or thinking oneself worthy of worship. So for this word abhijatasya, Baladeva Vidyabhushan says here, the qualities appear in a person born, jatasya, with auspicious impressions, which means we've carried from piety from our previous life, which manifest from pious action in the past, and which bear fruit at the time of taking the body. So that was described in the last chapter, how these activities of the past and pious activities, they bear fruit. When we take our body, we get a certain type of eye, ear, nose, tongue, etc. that determine what our attraction is in this life. He quotes from Parihad Aranyaka Upanishad, Punya punyena karuna bhavati papena. He becomes pure by pure actions, and he becomes evil by evil actions. It's quite simple about how we act. Has a lot to do with describing creating our next body. So the sampat, the opulence of Deva's divine nature, is very much aspired for, because this quality, Srila Prabhupada in his purport is very much equating the mode of goodness with the coming to the transcendental platform, which we know there's a slight distinction there. The mode of goodness by itself, without devotional service, is not going to bring us to transcendental platform. But Baladeva Vidyabhushan explains that these qualities in the mode of goodness are very valuable, because from this position a person has the possibility of attaining jnana and bhakti. So therefore it is the excellent fruit of the tree of samsara. So The other thing that is the point that has been made here by Baladeva Vibhushan is that these qualities being described in the different varnas and ashramas are showing us that a person, even if they're born into a lower birth, such as a Sudra birth, by properly performing his duties, he can attain to the perfect stage. Because even the Sudra has a divine quality. Everybody has divine qualities if they properly perform their duties. So therefore, a lower birth is not a disqualification. A person may be in any of the modes of nature, but if he acts according to the rules of Varna and Ashram prescribed for that mode, then he is considered Deva in nature and is headed for liberation. So we know liberation, of course, is not our goal. The difference comes up in accepting the spiritual master and accepting and hearing about Krishna, which is also one of these divine qualities. So Sridhar Swami explains also about the end of chapter 15. And he says, now in the 16th chapter, Lord Krishna is clarifying by what qualities exactly who is the recipient of the knowledge and established in wisdom and who is not. So he's referring specifically to the 20th verse of the 15th chapter. And this whole 16th chapter is describing who is the one who is becoming wise, who is the recipient of knowledge, and who has no hope of it. These 26 qualities related by Lord Krishna are characterized by one who is situated in the divine nature and thus qualified to attain association with the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Okay, so one significant point about Ramanujacharya is he concludes by saying the virtues of these 26 qualities are revealed by following them and living in this manner. So in other words, he's saying that whatever we are born into, whatever we are born into, we follow our prescribed duties and we act accordingly, and therefore the qualities will be revealed in us. So if we understand the qualities and aspire to develop them, then they will be revealed in us. And the other thing that Ramanujacharya, we had some explosions in here before class, and I don't think your yeah. It doesn't work anymore, okay? There was your batteries don't work anymore. You have to wait for the generator. Now you can leave it on. They'll put the generator on soon. When the generator comes on, it'll work. But the inverter exploded. No, this light is the recorder. No, the inverter had some little explosions. It stopped working. Okay.
But even without this light, we are in a position to hear everyone's.
Yeah, we can hear. Only this recording on the internet will not be there, and the radio will not have their reception. But yeah, we can't do anything. The inverter doesn't work. It was being crazy before. The lights were flickering and going off, and then there were two explosions in here, small explosions in there. So Ramanujacharya also explains the word abhijatasya, which is being born of. He gives three different ways to attain abhijatasya. The word abhijatasya refers to those who are born with the divine nature, which we already know, direct translation. being born of the divine nature. Also those who are destined to follow the divine path, and those who are naturally in harmony with divinity. So he gives ways to attain these divine qualities is not simply because we're born of those nature. In other words, we might be born of lower qualities, but we can, by following our varna and ashram and by engaging in devotional service, nevertheless we can develop divine qualities. So those who are born with divine nature, those who are destined to follow the divine path, and those who are naturally in harmony with divinity. Okay, so let's look a little bit at these qualities themselves. We had Jnana Yoga Vyavastita, being engaged in the cultivation of knowledge, and also translated elsewhere as understanding what is the way to receive knowledge. Baladev Vidyabhushan explains it as we'll get his description. So Baladev Vidyabhushan explains Jnana Yoga Vyavastitaha as he is fully knowledgeable of the methods of attaining jnana. Jnana Yoga he describes as being knowledgeable of the methods of attaining jnana, which such as hearing. One of the other acharyas, I think Ramanuja Acharya, says such as other things, but yeah. No, understanding the process of attaining knowledge, or as Srila Prabhupada saw it, being situated in knowledge. But Prabhupada also mentions this attaining spiritual knowledge when he says if one is taken to the renounced order of life and he doesn't have this knowledge, then he should engage himself fully in hearing from a bona fide spiritual master to cultivate knowledge. So he also covers this point in his purport. So then there are the three qualities for a householder: charity, self-control, and sacrifice. Charity is very important for householders. I'm pleased I'm not a householder because I don't really understand charity. I understand very much from the 18th chapter. Krishna explains how the charity is in the three different modes. Charity in the mode of goodness, charity in the mode of passion, charity in the mode of ignorance. Here Srila Prabhupada says, forget about passion and ignorance because it's simply a waste of money. I've also heard that if you give charity to the wrong person, you will also receive some of the karma for what they spend the money on. In other words, if you give some charity up the street and they go and buy cigarettes and a cup of tea, as you'll find a lot of them do, then you'll get some karma from that. So I don't often give charity in the street, but on the other hand, for the householder, it's his obligation to give charity. So he has to find a way of giving charity properly. Now Srila Prabhupada has given us clear indication of what proper charity is. It should be given for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada has mentioned 50% of the income should be spent in propagating Krishna consciousness. But that doesn't mean that you give 50% of your income away, because in your home as a grihasta you are also cultivating and propagating Krishna consciousness if you're properly situated. Srila Prabhupada explains in the 13th chapter about householders. One of the qualities of knowledge in the 13th chapter was detachment from wife, home, family and the rest. So Prabhupada explains how this does not mean you have to leave your wife and children. He says, as for the detachment for children, wife and home, it does not mean that one should have no feeling for these. They are natural objects of affection, but when they are not favourable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy, because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna, and have some discussion on books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These 4 things will make one happy. One should train the members of this family in this way. So in other words, Srila Prabhupada is saying that this cultivation of Krishna consciousness begins in the home. So it's not that propagating Krishna consciousness is all outside of the home, that we do it by giving money outside of the home. The householder begins propagating Krishna consciousness by engaging his family in Krishna consciousness. So in this way, the householder's charity should be spent. Householder is also responsible for the lives of all living entities, as explained in various parts, particularly the 7th canto, chapters 11 through 15, describe the qualities of the 4 orders of life. And the householder is responsible for the lives even of the lizard and everything in the house. Even the snake, it says in one place, but in another place we know we should, Bhaktisiddhanta would kill the snake because it's an envious living entity. But in one place it says that the householder is responsible even to feed the lizards and the snakes. So the householder, Prabhupada gave the example. Somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, when devotee had just got married, so this devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, I want to know what will make my household life successful. And Prabhupada said, so when you finish cooking your meal, you go out in the street and you call out loudly, is anyone hungry? And if anyone comes, you feed them. And after you feed them, you can take you and your family take your meal. So this devotee thought, there must be, this is not really the answer. This is not really how to make household life successful. So he thought, Prabhupada didn't hear me properly. So he asked the same question again. Srila Prabhupada, how can I make my household life successful? And Prabhupada, exactly the same. See, when you and your family, you've finished cooking your meal, and you go out in the street, you call out very loudly, is anyone hungry? If anyone comes, you feed them. And then you and your family can take your meal. And the devotee asked the same question a 3rd time. He really thought that Prabhupada didn't understand his question. He wanted something really important to make his household life successful. And Prabhupada explained the same story for the 3rd time. So this is very significant about the importance of charity for householders. Of course, we find when we get to the 18th chapter that charity should never be given up. Even for one in the renounced order, everyone is obliged to continue charity. The Brahmana also is required to give in charity. He receives charity, but he gives in charity. This is one of the occupational duties of a Brahmana. He receives charity and gives in charity. He worships the deity and he teaches the worship of the deity. And another 2 things I forget just now. So a Brahmana is supposed to receive charity, but whatever he can't use in his day, he should distribute. So he should not be accumulating anything. Whatever he receives that he does not need, he should then distribute in charity himself. So that's why sannyasis generally don't have bank accounts. But of course, when they're propagating Krishna consciousness, like collecting to build temples and things like that, they're collecting money for Krishna, and it's a little different. But for himself, he should not accumulate anything. Okay, the next point, Dhamma, self-control. Control of the senses. Srila Prabhupada mentions that all orders should control their senses, but especially householders, because they live in a family, they have a wife, they have, it's explained in another place, a license for sense control, sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada talks mostly about engagement in sex for sense gratification. But it also applies to other opulences which a householder has. Sometimes a householder has a very nice house and a very nice car, very nice property. But if he engages them properly and controls the senses, then it's not for his personal sense gratification. In one part, Prabhupada says somebody can build a very nice temple, and he's not prohibited from living there. But still, the purpose of his building the temple was to build it for Krishna. So in similar ways, one can have a very nice house, but if one engages in programs like Namahata and Bhakti Vriksha, by engaging people in and using the house to propagate Krishna consciousness, then one can dedicate all this opulence to Krishna. So it is possible, even for the householder, to not be attached. It's also described in the 7th canto how the householder, not personally being attached to his wife, he gets over this attachment by engaging his wife in serving the Vaishnavas, serving the guests, and serving others. So in that way, instead of expecting his wife to serve him, he engages his wife in serving others and for the purpose of propagating Krishna consciousness. Sacrifice to be performed by householders. So Prabhupada explains this. Generally, sacrifices are no longer very useful in this age. He mentions the Agnihotra sacrifice and then says that actually it's too expensive and we can't do it. So therefore we should engage in the sacrifice for this age, which is Sankirtan Yajna. So in the same way, this sacrifice is also, as we described, for the propagation of Krishna consciousness. The householder engaged in Sankirtan Yajna is propagating Krishna consciousness to his family and inviting his neighbors around and propagating for his neighbors as well. So in this way the householders can also engage this in Krishna consciousness. Now, so for brahmacharis, svadhyaya, Vedic study. Baladeva Vibhushan also mentions that this includes taking shelter of the spiritual master and hearing from him and engaging in other ritual processes. So of course, all of us should be studying the Vedas because for the most part, we weren't involved in brahmacharya. We weren't properly situated in brahmacharya when we were in the age of brahmacharis. So we all need to study Prabhupada's books particularly and not just say, oh, that's just for brahmacharis. So, but in a properly situated varnashram system, a student will come and he will study the Vedas, and then his spiritual master, according to his qualities, will advise him to take up householder life or to remain a brahmachari, a lifetime brahmachari. So, but this training in brahmacharya is training in the scriptures, but is also training in sense control, training in devotional practices. Prabhupada, if you read Prabhupada's quotes on training the youth, training in brahmacharya, he says this training involves following 4 regular principles, getting up early in the morning, going to Mangal Arati, chanting Hare Krishna. This is all part of brahmacharya training. And this control of the senses and this austerity. At one part, in one place, and I can't find the quote, Prabhupada said that the children should learn, I can't find the exact words, but something like the joy of austerity. In other words, if you want to achieve anything in life, you need to engage in austerity. For example, if you want to learn how to play the harmonium, you have to spend a couple of hours a day practicing. You can't just learn and it becomes automatic. So this is austerity. And this austerity, if you cultivate this practice, understanding that if you want to achieve something, you need to exercise austerity, you need to practice. Krishna anything, even mundane things, but especially Krishna consciousness, we need also to practice. So this austerity we should learn as brahmacharis. And then if we're successful in this varanashram and we've learned how to control our senses and how to execute austerity for the purpose of advancement of Krishna consciousness, then we can become a very successful householder. Prabhupada says, he was also mentioned by Bhakti Siddhanta, if one can produce children for the purpose of Krishna consciousness, he can have hundreds of children. But otherwise, sex life is not to be engaged in. And tapas, our last one, is for the vanaprastha, the retired order of life. So after householder life, generally a householder's duties will last until their daughters get married and their sons can take over the way of earning a livelihood and allow the parents to retire. Generally it should be around halfway through the life, around 50 years old. Then the children are growing up, they're responsible for themselves. The daughters have a husband who will now take care of them and protect them. And so the family should take, the husband and wife should take to retired life. And that should be engaged more in austerity, tapa, austerity. So they should not aspire just to retire and live very comfortably. And neither should they aspire to sit in the home and look after the grandchildren. Of course, it is also, there are 2 ways of accepting vanaprastha. One way, Srila Prabhupada explains, the husband and wife can go for pilgrimage around the holy places. Particularly in the beginning of vanaprastha, they should be doing this. And another way is sometimes the vanaprastha will leave his wife with his grown-up sons and he will go by himself. But still, the wife's duty is not just to look after the grandchildren. Her duty in this householder is to be a spiritual guide. The role of woman in Vedic situation is a very highly respected one. So she is not just a free babysitter. Her role is to guide the training of the children and developing of good qualities. Srila Prabhupada also mentions that the mother-in-law will teach the daughter daughter-in-law by teaching his own daughter, by teaching her own daughter. So in that way she has a role to guide properly the establishment of the family and to teach spiritual knowledge. She has an important role to play. In the Western culture, this role is undermined very much. But we can try to properly understand it and be properly situated in our role. So, because we understand, Krishna explains also in the 9th chapter that the woman's body is considered a lower birth. So we have to understand how that is so. But nevertheless, Krishna says that we can perfect our life. We also understand that most people in Kali Yuga are also in a lower birth and sutras. When I was growing up, I came from a school where I was the top of the school. But that doesn't mean that I'm highly intelligent. It just means that the others around me were less intelligent. Now that I can see some of these devotees here who give such wonderful classes and have such depth of knowledge of the Shastras, I can see that it's just my understanding was not at that level. And I can see the difference. So we shouldn't, from our limited perspective, try and just take from the Shastra what we like and leave aside the rest. We should take what Srila Prabhupada has given us and try to understand how it is true. Rather than, because if we just take what we like and leave the rest, we're in the mode of passion. And we're also engaging in jnana, we're engaging in speculation, and we won't achieve the full result. We should endeavor to take every word that Srila Prabhupada has written and try and understand how it is true. And then we should also take guidance from the living spiritual master when we have doubts and we want to understand it. So we've gone quite a lot over time. So we'll stop here and see if anyone has any comments or questions.